Okay, today we are meeting with Matt Zimmer, and welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for joining us. I think you've got quite a name in the swimming community, and you've been in it pretty much, from what I understand, most of your life. Is that right?
Yeah, I can't seem to dry off. I keep getting dumped back in, but I love it. And so the water's always pretty warm. So it's been great.
So it's running through your blood.
It is splashing around in there at all times. Yes.
Got it. And Matt is the director of operations for the CSCAA, what's known as the College Swimming Coaches Association of America. Go ahead, Matt. You've told me an easier way to say it. How do you say it?
College Swim Coaches Association.
College Swim Coaches Association. There you go.
We're always looking for new ways to shorten it up, make it easy.
Got it. So thank you again so much for taking the time to join us and welcome to the show. Matt, you and I originally got to know each other through a mutual friend, Tim Luarchik, who you were working with at the time. And I called Tim, and he used to be an assistant coach of mine. He's an amazing coach. He's coached a number of great swimmers, most notably, I think, Mark Gangloff, two-time Olympic gold medalist. And so he recommended getting in touch with you. And I've been really happy ever since that I got to know you. You helped us originally for providing products for some of our unique swimming programs that we offer, like special events and clinics. And we always appreciate it. You were very generous, and our kids were in love with it. Now, some of those kids that won some of those prizes that you are now consultants for us and are in some ways taking over the company and helping other kids. It's fantastic. So
I got to get in on that. I mean,
definitely have to.
I got to get some of that free help now. Man,
absolutely.
I play this right at all.
So now we have we've put together this set of tools, which is called the FM Fast Track online tools. And one of the tools that we have in there, we have a whole load of tools in there to help swimmers and coaches worldwide. But one of the tools in there is the FM College Pipeline. And this brought me back to want to talk with you again once I learned that you were part of this organization, because I love working with you. And I think there was an amazing way that we saw that maybe we could help swimmers together in a way. So we have this program that basically makes it, and we have a step-by-step guide. It's not a recruiting program, but a step-by-step guide to help swimmers interested in going on to swimming college find their way to the colleges that would be colleges they'd want to go to, if this makes sense. And so if you can see this, generally, you just go down here and click on these, and it covers the NCAA Division 1, 2, and 3, right? And all the rules. And you can imagine as a coach trying to keep up with your team, as well as all the different things that you got to do for each swimmer. So this gives the swimmer their own account. They can fill this out. They can ask a question, right? We have very experienced college coaches on staff, things like that. But we always want to make sure they've got a resource, an expert resource, such as you folks, and they can add notes, see if it's helpful, save it. But it gives them everything they need to do for all the different grades, why coaches might not be responding to them in a certain time of the season, things like that. But we always want to keep it current. There's a lot of changes that go on in the NCAAs, and it's hard to read and keep up on that. Is that right?
It's not only is it hard for you, it's hard for me, it's hard for our college coaches, it's hard for their sports administrators, because the NCAA every year is making rules changes, and most of the time they're completely correctly intended. They want to make all sports safer. They want to protect the interest of the athletes. But the challenge is substantial in just keeping up with it. And it's really, really difficult for a recruit or a family who's they're going to go through this experience once. They may go through a couple of different colleges or 3 or 4 different colleges for visits to figure out where they want to go. But the reality is you're going to go through the recruiting process once in your life. So if you've
all brand new to you,
it's all brand new. So the first time out, you're coming in with preconceived notions where, well, this is what it was like in my day, or you probably knew somebody who knew somebody, or maybe your coach, they've had other athletes who've gotten recruited. What was okay 10 years ago has nothing to do with what was okay last year and what's okay this year. So kudos to you for trying to put together, here's what you need to do because here's where the rules are. It's challenging. It's extremely challenging for anybody. And we often feel bad, and we try to do what we can to help our coaches, and our coaches do what they can to help the community at large, to say, here's how this is going to work. Here's how many visits you can have. Here's when I'm allowed to see you. Here's how I'm allowed to communicate with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a while for any athlete or family to get up to speed. And the last thing you want is to make a bad first impression, because like, I called the coach, or I wrote the coach, I never heard from him, or I sent the flyer back, but I never heard from them. There are windows where they can speak to you. There are big windows where they cannot speak to you.
And you can feel bummed out, or make a different decision during that time, or feel offended.
Yep.
Right. And
all the time.
You coach yourself, if I'm right as well, right? How valuable, in your opinion, would it be to have a program like you just saw, to step by step for every swimmer? Because if you've got 250, 300 swimmers or more, 500 swimmers, right? How could you possibly keep on target for each one of those swimmers in the different grades coming up from 8th grade, 9th grade? Make sure that you just wouldn't have time.
Yeah, it's that long-term planning that I've got a sophomore myself in high school, and he swims, and whether or not he wants to go and continue on, irrespective of the times that he hits, there's a place that he can go and swim, but how that aligns with what he's interested on from a career standpoint or from educational standpoint, we have no idea. I mean, I should be the one guy who's pretty familiar with all this, and help guide him to where to go to align his academic interests with any athletic interests. We have no idea what we should be doing or where we should be going.
Okay, I'm going to make sure that we get that for you, so at least you have that as a thank you for you doing it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It'll be the least I could do to get back.
But the reality is, if you've got a superstar athlete, and I know fluid mechanics has a lot of really good athletes under the belt. I mean, just by the nature of how many athletes you have go on to continue swimming in college, you are clearly getting a very elite crop out of the gate. But it's absolutely true that very few of those athletes even know where to begin, and certainly weren't thinking about it between 8th grade, freshman year, sophomore year. They're probably starting to think about it junior year, because their times are matriculating up to the point where it's like, oh, I could continue to swim. Where do I fit in?
And a lot of times they've missed a lot of the preparation items to get there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That educational component is enormously valuable.
Right. It's just a huge, and it's one of many things they're doing during that time. I mean, I don't know, being a teenager was a while back for me, and a little bit back for you, but we can still remember a little bit. Just being not knowing was a lot of anxiety for a lot of swimmers. I personally didn't have it. It was funny because I applied for college in August and got in August. 2 weeks later, I was swimming. It was just kind of a weird thing for me, but that's not today's world.
No. And coaches are now allowed to start recruiting basically your sophomore year. Towards the end of your sophomore year, you can start recruiting now. It used to be junior year, but they're getting earlier and earlier. I mean, some of the other sports have helped drive this push to say, football and basketball, they've got athletes much younger identified, because you're looking at their stats, and they're, those are more subjective sports, where swimming is not. But most of the vast majority of the swimmers we have at college are peaking later in their life. They're peaking when they're juniors and seniors. That's when those growth spurts hit. That's when you can really compete as more of an adult. When you're 15, 16 years old, you're not likely to be physically in a position to be thinking about, here's where I'm going to fit in college.
Right. And a lot of them, I remember for me, I was a late developer, kind of late maturity wise and things like that. And just wasn't thinking about it at that time. I was more interested in friends and, getting my first car and all this other
As
stuff.
You should be. I mean, that's the fun
right.
stuff.
That's the time of life you're in.
Yeah.
But then there's that, there's this whole aspect of, you got to be an adult while you're a child at the same time, right? The world's become much more competitive.
It's enormously competitive, and that doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. You'd think since we're living in the age of having everything at our fingertips, that accessing information should be really simple. Well, right. Yeah, but there's different interpretations. More of it. There's 1,000 times more information you got to sift through. So it's not really any easier. It's just gotten more complex.
So we got to find out how you help that situation here. This is great. Yeah. So anyway, so let me just find out a little bit about and show our audience a little bit about where you came from, why swimming's in your blood to start with. What got you started into swimming in the beginning?
Well, my mom threw me in the deep end of the pool when I was about 6 months old. So my first swimming, glamour shot was me, on my back, bubbling up at
Welcome
6 months
to the
old.
world.
So yeah, we were fortunate when I was born. Not that I had nothing to do with this, but my parents lived by a lake, and they were, when I was born, they're like, okay, he's going to be walking soon, and he's going straight for that. So let's get him figured out. And I was in one of those, baby and me classes, and got tossed in, and was super comfortable, loved it, didn't want to get out. The buddy of mine who I was 2 houses down from, and we were like 30 days apart, he couldn't wait to get out of the pool, and I was scrambling to get in the pool. And so it just never changed, and I've been with it ever since, and kind of matriculated up and did summer team a little bit and did private team a little bit, but I wasn't all that into it. You're growing up, it feels like you got plenty of stuff to do. I didn't dedicate myself to swimming until kind of halfway through high school. My freshman year here in Arlington Heights area outside of Chicago, had some good teams, and ended up on a team in high school with a really good guy who ended up going to swim for Counsilman in his last years at Indiana. So he was a really good swimmer. He got second at state, and Illinois typically has some pretty good state swimmers. So
Do you remember his name?
Yeah, Pat Harrington.
Pat Harrington.
Yeah, he swam a few years at Indiana.
He didn't dive at all, did he?
No.
Okay.
He's just a swimmer. He's really good 100 freestyler, really good 200 freestyler. He got second in state and did a really good job, and obviously went on to swim at a big time school. Well, I just drafted off that guy and figured, all right, the guy's pretty good. And then I kind of slowly started getting a little bit faster. Then he introduced me to an amazing club coach, real old school Marine mentality guy. And I definitely needed it that time in my life, and started swimming year round, not until really my junior year of high school, year round. And, I was super raw. I didn't know a thing about the sport. I just knew I could get from here to there pretty quick, but didn't have any technical expertise or anything. I still had to figure out how to turn around and come back. That part was a hard one for me. So, clearly I was a sprinter from the get-go. It was like, shorter the better, get in, get out, and go home. But
I can see that in your personality too. You're a sprinter.
You got to go. You got to get
in a good way.
In a good way, yes. So, and a guy by the name of Gordon Ackerman, who was head coach for the Arlington Alligators back in the day, and he had a whole bunch of kids. It was a big team, and a lot of them went on to swim at college. We had a number of kids go to Big Ten schools, to what was Pac-10 schools back then, UCLA. So he'd done a really awesome job, and I got lucky enough to get in on that, and just had a whole bunch of people to chase, and was lucky enough to get recruited to a mid-major school. I went to University of Toledo. I had a great 4 years there, had a really good coach, refined what I did, and had a nice career, got education paid for, got super lucky.
Wow.
And
that's amazing, really.
You look back on
all the time that people on average dedicate to that, and especially back then, right? All those yards and things like that, right? You did fantastically. I
didn't have that foundation. I just had a lot of raw energy. Somebody channeled it for good for once.
Enthusiasm, ready to go.
Yeah, just to jump in and go. So that worked out pretty well. I got more and more into swimming as the years went. I think I was fortunate to get in kind of when I did, because I didn't lose interest. I didn't hit that burnout factor. I didn't have those tens of thousands of yards that everyone was doing in the 70s and 80s to just sort of, burn yourself out. I was a sprinter. I got in. I did those, 4/800s practice. God, what am I doing? This is the worst. But, I slowly built up a back end foundation, and was able to swim fast. You get bigger, stronger. Like you said, I was a late bloomer as well. And I think it really helped me to keep my interest in the sport and always be a student of the sport.
Being a late bloomer isn't necessarily a bad thing in swimming, because what happens is when you haven't had the development yet, you have to do a lot of things to keep up with others. and you learn technique and you learn psychology and you learn different ways to deal with it. And then once you get that, then we're all going to develop, or most of us are going to develop into men, right? That's what happens. And then
At least
if you get that a little later, you get that.
Not so much. Yeah.
What's
physically, yeah. Physically, yes, but emotionally, no.
Exactly. So then you got the kid inside in a man's body. And
exactly.
Got it. If you're picking out something that was really special and you're so proud of in your swimming career, what would that have been?
It probably would be when I got out of swimming. You know, typically college is the end of our swimming career for the vast majority of everybody. It is. I mean, you pick up masters and that's great. And a lot of times you go away for a bunch of years, then you come back and you realize how much you love this sport. So I did get into masters a little bit a few years ago, but my best memory was one of the toughest memories too. But I was out from 94 to like 98. I was out of the water. I was working. I mean, you're hustling at a job, and I happened to work for a swim company, work for Tier Sport, which was great, and that's where we got to know each other. Yeah. So an awesome career, wonderful people, had an amazing experience, but you're working hard. I mean, you don't get to just jump in the pool. You're traveling around and stuff like that. But I was at a point where I was starting to miss the sport, and I needed to get in. And there was a Golden West pool, which was right down the street from Tier. Way back when they had a team that we were working with, and he said, you should come in, come visit. And I said, all right, maybe I'll jump in a few mornings here and there. And so anyway, long story short, you know exactly where this is going. Mm-hmm. Yes, I started to get back in again, started to train a little bit more, do a little bit more, totally refined my strokes. Apparently things change in 5 years. So my head position, everything was totally wrong. I was doing it all wrong. Started getting faster again. Said, I'll do a meet. I'll do this, do that. Next thing you know, I made Olympic trial cuts for 2000, and I made them in the 50 free and the 100 free as a 27-year-old, which was at the time one of the older guys in the pool, and it showed. I had no back end, but I got there, and I got up there with the young kids, and I gave it a shot, and that's
congratulations.
My favorite memory. One of the most painful swims I've had, but
you know what? That only lasts a short while, right?
That's right.
The memory of that lasts forever.
Yes, it was a special moment to be there, and I had never gotten my Olympic trial cuts in 96 or certainly.
If I had a hat on, I'd take it off to you. Congratulations. That's Thanks. Outstanding. And not a whole lot of people make it to Olympic trials anyway, right? And that's a big accomplishment. Yeah. And do that like that's incredible. So now we see and we can see some of the things that brought you along in the swimming world and brought you to where you came through, and then you were with Tier, and like you said, that was a great job, right? That's a great company.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut my teeth on a lot of stuff. Got to learn a lot.
I have to say, we missed you dearly when you left, though. I didn't know where you'd gone. I'm like, where's Matt? And then we got a chance to reconnect. So now you're with CSCAA. Can you tell us a little bit? How would you describe the coaches, swimming coaches association, if I can say that right?
Yep.
How would you describe that to someone who's never heard of it before? What do you guys do?
We are advocates for college coaches. I mean, we certainly represent the swimmers as well, but our membership is composed entirely of collegiate swimming and diving coaches. So at all divisions, NAIA, junior college, Division 1, 2, 3, they can elect to be members of our association. So we are the conduit to the NCAA. We are the conduit for advocacy for swim teams. We go on campuses who are looking to add sports, and we advocate for swimming. We go on to campuses who are cutting the sport, and we let them know that's not a good idea. And this year has been really, really challenging because all college sports have taken a huge hit because of COVID. I mean, everybody's taken a huge hit because of COVID, but Olympic sports in general have suffered mightily because they are considered non-revenue generating sports, unlike the untouchables, football and basketball. Well, the reality is we go and perform a lot of case analysis and a lot of studying and a lot of fiscal intervention to say, if you're looking at this as a non-revenue sport, you're not really considering XYZ. You're not considering the 20 kids on the team who are paying tuition, who are paying rent. You're not considering what that facility brings in and how your team is able to bring other teams in, whether it's conference championships or running a USA Swim Club membership. There's there's oodles and oodles of carry-on prosperity that come out of that pool that is directed and dictated by the swim team.
You're showing the value of a team and why they'd want to have it there. And because by cutting the team, they lose all that value. They may not even know what they're losing when they cut it.
And the reality is they don't. A lot of the decisions to cut come behind closed doors, and it's a very black and white decision because it's numbers. It looks like, oh, we're spending $1 million on that program. That's $1 million we can save. That is not the case. In the case of University of Iowa, I mean, this is a Power 5 program. University of Iowa is a wealthy school. They've done well, and certainly they're going to take some significant hits this year because of COVID. All schools will, but by dropping the swim team, they still have a facility that's less than 10 years old that they put up for, $50 million. They're still going to pay the rent on that. That's not going away. And they were supposed to host NCAA championships this year. That was going to bring in millions of dollars of revenue to Iowa City. So that's gone. Yep, that's gone. How many meets that the USA swimming teams, the University of Iowa swim team, the club team that operates out there, they were hosting dozens of LSC events all the time. You know how many they're going to host now?
None, right?
Millions of dollars of revenue lost.
Matt, years ago, my dad, one time, I think it was when I first owned Fluid Mechanics, and we started out, and I was there in a meeting, and he was been in the meetings with us for years. He works with our company. He's 82 now, and he still works with our company. He's great to have, fantastic resource. Anyway, he said, we were listening to the accountant, and he took me to the side. He says, John, you want to make sure you understand that accountants, a lot of times they have a term for them, which maybe not so nice, but a bean counter, right? Yeah. And basically he says, when they do it, they're counting, and he says, if you let the accountant run the company, he says, what they do is they increase the price, they decrease the cost, they spread the profit, and they kill the company. I said, what do you mean? How do they kill a company? Because now you're making more money. He says, they kill the life out of it. There's no life left. And he says, so a university and right is more than just dollars and cents, although I know it's a business. At the same time, if they kill the life, and I think the swim team is a huge part of that life, right? It brings life to the university. It's excitement. It's thrilling. That makes it, right?
There's a huge cultural aspect to it for sure. And of course, we're going to advocate to save our sport versus, tennis or wrestling or something like that. I mean, we would love to save all sports. It's not just swimming. But the reality is swimming has the second highest graduation rate amongst all college sports. The reality is
top GPAs, right?
One of the top GPAs across most campuses. The reality is that 40% of our student athletes are enrolled in STEM fields, which all universities, as much as society, need that to be coming out. So we produce good people. We produce people who are going to go out in the world and do a really good job, and ultimately are going to give back to university.
Right.
And that's something that has really started to come out, like how much swimmers and postgrads come back and contribute to the programs, because we all have different kind of levels of job. We all want to support our alma maters and take care of things, but there's somebody in every single school who came out of the swim team that has done really well for themselves and is in a position to give back. And that's something that universities rely on, that give back. When you cut a swim team out, they're not going to do it again. They're not going to give to the school. They're going to give because that team was there. And I'm going to say the same thing about University of Toledo. It's a fine institution. I had a great education. I'm really appreciative, but I will never give a dime to them because they dropped the men's team.
Right. And that's a passion of yours.
Yep.
Right. And because of that, right, then you stop being interested in trying to help them because they're not really helping the group that you were in.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate to have that kind of a relationship with my alma mater. I, as a business person, as somebody who is in this sport, I say, I'm very happy to help you grow. I've been back on campus. I've supported the coaches. I've been around. I want to be a contributor. I think the women's team has done a nice job. I really love who they've hired. They're doing a fine job. But you want my money as an alumni? No. because I saw that the year after you got rid of the men's program, you put up a multi-million-dollar indoor practice facility for your football team that has done nothing to generate additional revenue for that campus. And it has done nothing to increase the ability of that team to generate more money because they've won more Mid-American Conference football championships. Zero.
Right. Generally, they don't make money. I mean, the big programs do, but yeah.
Very, very few.
Very few
programs make money, because the athletic operational budget is always separate from the university operational budget. They run a totally separate finance department, and most of them, the majority of schools, run in the red, not the black. The folks who are starting to turn a profit now, at least up until last year, that were generating a lot of money from football revenue or basketball revenue, got that money out of television contracts. So the Big Ten Network or the SEC Network, Pac-12 Network has done nothing. I mean, no one's really watching that. And listen, I get it. I went to the football games too. I don't have anything against those guys, but they really should be running under a different set of rules. Because when you skew those numbers and you skew what's going on, like, they need to be self-sufficient. If they're not self-sufficient, they shouldn't go to affect the opportunities that, whether it's a swimmer, a diver, a volleyball player, a track and field, those guys should not affect our lives. And the fact is,
and that's back to the Title IX in a way too, isn't it?
Yeah. There's always been some complicity when it comes to athletic departments saying, well, we got to cut it for Title IX reasons. There's never been one Title IX lawsuit decided on. Never. Like, it's been around since 1972, and there's yet to be one lawsuit completed where a university was found to be out of compliance. There's plenty of universities that are out of compliance with Title IX, but if you're worried about, we're going to get sued, or, we have to do this because we're out of compliance,
there's plenty of people that are speeding that don't get tickets.
That's a complete smoke show. That is a total excuse. Follow the money all day long.
Got it. So that's interesting. And universities are businesses, right?
Absolutely. And athletic departments are businesses.
Yeah, these are businesses, whether you know it or not.
And the ones that, and the athletic departments that need to take money from the general fund to support their athletic department endeavors are not being run very well. Got
it. There you go. This is such great information for people to understand. It's amazing, Matt. That's such a background.
You bring up a good point, because this is something we fight every day about. We warn our teams about when campuses start to drop programs, it affects not just their campuses, certainly those kids. It affects the entire conference, because all of a sudden you go from a conference like the Mid-American Conference that had 6 or 7 men's teams to one that has 2. There's no point to have a conference. So Miami of Ohio, why do you still have a men's team? That's a question that they ask all the time, because we don't have a conference for you. We can't have a conference championship. What do we do? So you start to see the ripple effects of just one school and one mid-major program, and how it starts to grow and balloon and create a tsunami of, why are we keeping this? Why is this sport around? This is a niche sport. Not a niche sport.
That's what I mean with Iowa. I saw what was going on there, right? And I think Swam was, and announcing, showing people what was going on, and bringing some attention to that. And being a Big Ten swimmer myself, I felt, because I mean, they were right next to me in the next lane.
Yep.
These are the guys I raced against, and so to see them no longer have an opportunity, and they were just as good as me, or very close. It was these were guys that worked just as hard to get there as I did, and I know what it took, and I know what a passion it had in my life. And if you look at later on, I've been doing some of these interviews with the 1980 Olympians, and you feel the pain that are still in these men and women for the rest of their lives, because they were denied the opportunity to go on and swim in the Olympics. It's the same thing for the people that are in these programs that are no longer allowed to pursue their passion because somebody wanted to save a few bucks.
Yeah. And you can understand in dollars and cents, and going back to your analogy with the accountant and the bean counter, there's always going to be a reason to get rid of something. But if you continue to do that, what do you stand for? Who are you? When University of Iowa can cut both their men's and women's program, yet still be saddled with enormous facility costs, and then having to wake up and realize that, oh, there's all this carry-on financials that we're not going to get. Guess we didn't factor that in. Oh, but let's make sure we give half of our football staff raises to the tune of, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a total insult to every athlete who came before them and any athlete who considered going there.
Right.
Why would you ever support that university if that's how they're going to treat, the legacy?
That's right.
Ball State University, shortly after University of Toledo cut their sport, Ball State was going to cut their men's team too. And the same kind of fight went on. The difference was they had an administration that was willing to listen and take an alternate path. So what do? They cut scholarships, they cut budgets, they cut everything out that they could without cutting the team out. You left the heart of the team there, but you had to do some, significant operation to let it survive. But it did survive and it did thrive. And they've got an awesome coach there now who's building that program up and a full men's team. Granted, with a limited budget, but at least they listened. They said, cut down the budget. Don't kill the opportunity, because there's going to be men. And if it was the women's team, it would be the same thing. They're going to be men and women who want to come to compete. Leave the opportunity there.
So you guys are making sure that there's a future for swimming. What do we do how do you guys generate your income? Is it memberships? What do you do to?
It is memberships. Yeah. We're predominantly funded by our memberships, which, comes from the schools. The schools have to dedicate, X amount of, a very small percentage of their budget, but, a few bucks here and there to be a part of our association, because we do provide a lot. We provide a lot of content every week. We get out to them. We provide a lot of analysis. We do a lot of financial detail reports. We gauge the health of their team from a financial aspect, and as well as looking at their team and their budget and their conference and how they're doing. Tons and tons of data we provide. We're also obviously the conduit for the NCAA. So any rules changes, we're the advocates for them on that. We have had more swim teams put on the roadmap than taken off. And it's even with COVID. I mean, COVID's making it tough because teams are coming off the board. Our organization, our executive director, his name is Greg Earhart, brilliant guy. And he's done a lot of work and does a lot of facilitation. He's been on the ground running with University of Iowa. He was on the ground running to combat William and Mary dropping the teams that they did. Mm-hmm. They're now back.
I saw that. That's fantastic.
So, it's
and that
hard.
Was your group that helped with that?
Big time. That was Greg and his team and all.
Thank you, Greg.
I just run around and try to keep the lights on. That guy does the heavy lifting, so I'm in good company. I'll ride his coattails.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But we've had more successes generating and adding teams to campuses in NAIA, in Division II, in Division III. There should be another one coming in the Midwest here in the next 30 days where leaders at institutions who say, we want to grow enrollment, we want to grow really good students, what should we be investing in? So Greg and his group will go in on campus and show them exactly what they can expect by starting, here's what it's going to cost you, down to the penny. Here's where you can go high, medium, low in this. Here's your facility situation. Here's where you can get your coaches. Oh, by the way, we've got a candidate pool that we think would be ideal based on what you want to spend. And we're going to advocate to you for them. To get them in there. So you know exactly what you're spending. And here's the trajectory of how many athletes you can expect per year. And here's the moment that you're going to turn from an investment situation to recouping that investment in dollars and cents when you get enough kids on campus based on what you put into it. So we try to do a lot of the heavy lifting for these universities and these athletic directors.
You guys are like the warriors of the swimming world in a way. Really, if it makes sense, because you're fighting for all of us. I mean, if you think about you're going to give to your swim team or right in your college, right? If you really want to support the swimming world and the health of the swimming world, because if this closes up, right, and for some reason they were successful at reducing the number of college programs to the point where that kids don't see an opportunity to get there. Yeah. Right. It hurts
everything. It hurts high school sport.
Closes down.
The Olympic movement, USA Swimming is terribly concerned. They're our big brother, if you will. We operate, a lot because of their support. They're a good,
work hand in hand.
Very, very good supporter of the College Swim Coaches Association. So they know that the majority of national team athletes are in or come from colleges. The majority of the national team coaches or Olympic coaches come from or are currently coaching colleges right now. So we are the tip of the spear. We are the best of the best. We feed the national team and we feed Olympic medals. That's what the USOC wants. So it's in everyone's interest to,
right. And so
give us more tools.
So when somebody becomes a member and right, and USA coaches can become members, is that right?
They can now. That wasn't the case a few years ago, but we've because of the vast interest in the content we're producing and the fight we're trying to fight, there has been some really good response.
Because they kind of need to know that stuff coming up.
Absolutely. So we have launched an associate membership program. So you can go on the csca.org and look for the associate member portal, and it'll show you exactly what you're getting and you have access to. And we are a small organization. We are not bloated. We are not full of bureaucracy. It's literally a few of us in our homes trying to do the thing that we do and keep the sport alive.
And it's an affordable membership for
it's under $100.
Oh my gosh. Right. And so they come in, and by doing it, if I'm right, it's ending up supporting all the things that they're trying to do for their kids to help them get on to swim in college, right? Which is kind of one of the ultimate things for a lot of the swimmers, is to get there and be able to compete at a college level, because that makes them, better in some ways athletically than 98% or more of their counterparts, like we were talking about in the beginning, right? Yeah. They've achieved that level, and to say, guess what? You can't go on because we're not offering a program, and you guys want keeping that window open for people. And so by doing that, we're supporting that. That's fantastic. Well, I'm learning so much here. I really appreciate it. It's great. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I know it can't be easy, just the things that you're talking about, because I think that it's got to be tough negotiations to bring things back and keep them going. That's really interesting. So if somebody want to become a member, if you don't mind, we're going to put a link so they can get over there and become members.
I'll get that link.
Remember, when you're contributing to this, you're contributing, like I said, it's not a bloated thing. It's something that they're actually working really hard to keep this window open for our community. And so if you join, you're going to get information, you're going to get all right. And in addition, you're going to be, in some ways, it's supporting your own industry as a whole and promoting that. So we'll put a link on here so people can get to that, and they can learn more about it on your website, if I'm right. What's your website?
cscaa.org. So
okay, so that's a really easy one.
Yeah,
there's a lot of C's.
Pretty short.
cscaa.org.
Yep.
Okay, great.
And there's another affiliate that we have who's a big supporter of us. It's called SwimCloud, and swimcloud.com has got a ton of valuable resources that I believe anybody can register for free, which you can really get an intense view of any team in the country, all their stats, all their figures, all their rankings. So you can kind of figure out where you rank on that team, within that conference, within the division. Yeah, it's an outstanding tool that a lot of people don't know enough about it yet, but we're trying to help get the word out. And they've been.
Can you say that one more? SwimCloud.
Swimcloud.com.
It was great talking with you. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks, John. Be good.